My name is Erica. I am 26 years old, and last New Year's Eve, one sentence overturned everything I thought my family knew about me. For most of my life, I existed on the edges of my own home, present but unseen. My mother could spend hours praising my older sister's ambitions, her plans, her dreams, without once asking how I was doing. I learned early how to succeed in silence, how to work alone, how to shrink myself while the spotlight never moved from her. Being overlooked became normal, comfortable even until that single night changed the balance forever. We were gathered around the table in Round Rock, surrounded by brisket, black-eyed peas, and champagne glasses glowing under string lights from the yard. My mother leaned toward my sister, excitement bright in her eyes, promising support for yet another new venture. I sat there too, cutting my food, invisible as ever. Then my sister turned to me wearing that familiar smirk she had mastered as a child and asked if I was still wasting my time on my worthless little company. I did not argue or defend myself. I simply shrugged and said I had sold it. Laughter followed, dismissive and sharp, as she asked how much, mocking me with air quotes. I met her gaze and answered calmly, $250 million. Silence swallowed the table. My sister froze. My mother went pale, her champagne glass shaking as her fork slipped and rang against the plate. In that instant, years of neglect reversed direction. The weight I carried all my life fell away, landing squarely where it belonged. If you want to know how being ignored became my greatest advantage, and what that revelation cost my family, stay until the end and hear the rest. I was 8 years old the first time I really understood what it meant to be on the outside looking in. It was my sister Jennifer's birthday, and the backyard in Round Rock was transformed into something out of a magazine. Mom Christina had rented a bounce house, set up long tables with red checkered cloths, and grilled brisket all afternoon while the neighbors' kids ran around in the Texas heat. The smell of smoke and barbecue sauce hung in the air. When the big moment came, Mom rolled out a shiny new mountain bike, the kind with suspension and bright red grips, and Jennifer's face lit up like she'd won the lottery. Neighbors clapped, someone yelled that she was going places, and Mom pulled her into a hug so tight it looked like she never wanted to let go. I stood a few feet back in an old t-shirt holding a plastic cup, watching it all. I tried to step into the group photo just to be part of it, but Mom gently waved me off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is Jennifer's moment, sweetie," she said, and turned back to adjust the streamers. That sting hit me hard, sharp and sudden, but instead of crying, something inside shifted. It fueled me in a way I didn't understand yet. Jennifer's birthdays were always like that, big, loud, planned for weeks. There were 3-layer cakes from the fancy bakery in Austin, water slides in summer, entire weekends built around her. She got the trips to Six Flags, the new cleats for soccer, the private school with crisp uniforms, and football games under Friday night lights, where Mom cheered the loudest. My birthdays were different. Usually a cake from the grocery store, a few candles, and Mom half apologizing because she was so busy. One year, she left cash in an envelope on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "Happy birthday, love you." No party, no photos. Just that. My dad Joshua was barely around for any of it. He worked long hours at the bank downtown, coming home late, tie loosened, too tired to argue. He let Mom make every call, school's activities, money. There was this unspoken hierarchy in our house. Jennifer at the center, Mom orbiting around her dad on the sidelines, and me somewhere on the edge, as long as I didn't cause trouble. By the time I turned 9, I'd learned to stay quiet, to not ask for the new phone or the extra lessons. I watched Mom fight to get Jennifer into the best private school, paying for tutors and summer camps that cost more than our car payment, while I went to the local public school with peeling paint and crowded classrooms. When I asked why things were so different, Mom would pat my shoulder and say, "Jennifer needs the extra push. She's got so much potential." "You'll be fine, Erica. You're fine." It sounded nice at first, but "you'll be fine" slowly turned into "we don't have to try for you." so I started doing things myself. I stopped running into the living room with my report cards because every time I did, Mom was on the phone with one of Jennifer's teachers or driving her to practice. If I needed books or supplies, she'd sigh and say maybe later. For Jennifer, the answer was always yes. For me, it was always wait. I began noticing every small slight and tucked them away, not to hurt over them forever, but like a quiet list of reasons to never depend on anyone else. The dinner table conversations were always about Jennifer, her grades, her games, the colleges she might get into. I was there, but I was never the story. I was the extra chair. Somewhere in those early years, I quietly decided I didn't need their spotlight anymore. I'd build my own. By the time I hit 12 or 13, I had stopped asking for anything at all. I started picking up shifts as a barista at a small coffee shop near the highway in Round Rock, waking up early on weekends to pour lattes and wipe down counters while most kids slept in. Every tip went straight into a glass jar hidden under my bed, and I watched that jar grow steadily, dollar by dollar. When it finally held enough, I bought a used laptop from a classmate's older brother. No celebration, no one even noticed. That laptop became my escape and my teacher. Late at night, I watched YouTube tutorials to learn basic cooking, simple recipes like grilled cheese or stir-fry, because I refused to keep begging Mom for takeout cash. Jennifer, on the other hand, got a sleek new smartphone for her straight A's, along with private tutoring sessions twice a week to keep her ahead. She stayed at the same elite private school where Mom covered extra fees for advanced placement classes and football gear, while I navigated the public high school with worn-out textbooks and packed hallways. One evening, when I brought up the gap, Mom sighed deeply and said, "Jennifer needs the extra support. She's headed for big things. You'll be fine, Erica." That line again, sharp and final. One afternoon, I overheard Mom chatting with the neighbors over the fence while Jennifer practiced soccer drills in the yard. "Jennifer's our star," Mom said with pride that carried across the lawn. "She's got real drive. Erica's just fine, reliable, but nothing flashy." The words cut deep, but I kept walking past without a word, heart racing, and turned that pain into fuel. I told myself it would push me further than any compliment ever could. Dinner conversations remained fixed on Jennifer, her latest test scores, her game stats the college scouts starting to notice. I ate in silence, realizing I would never be the center of attention. So I turned everything inward. I stopped sharing my own small victories like acing a math test or getting praised by a teacher because they always got brushed aside or redirected anyway. That summer, at a family barbecue, I reconnected with my cousin Courtney for the first time in years. She was a couple of years younger, quiet and observant like me, and I noticed how her parents barely acknowledged her while bragging about her brother's latest basketball trophies. We ended up on the porch steps away from the noise, and she quietly admitted how she felt like the forgotten one in her own home. I didn't push her to talk more, but listening to her made everything click. I wasn't the only one dealing with this. We spoke softly about school pressures and unfairness, and for the first time I felt truly seen by someone in the family. That jar of tips kept filling under my bed, a private promise that I wouldn't remain stuck in the shadows forever. I began mapping out a future that relied on no one else's approval, one determined step at a time. College came as my first real shot at breaking free. I got accepted to the University of Texas at Austin, with a partial scholarship that covered tuition, but left everything else on me. When the acceptance email landed, I read it 3 times on my bed, pulse racing with something close to hope. Mom glanced at the screen, offered a quick, "That's great, honey," then immediately pivoted to Jennifer's applications for more prestigious schools with stronger networks. I moved into a cramped off-campus apartment shared with 2 roommates, the kind of place where the walls were thin and the rent was split 3 ways just to make it work. To cover bills, I stuck with early barista shifts, tying my apron before sunrise, and hustling to lectures with coffee grounds still under my nails. Between classes, I camped out in the library on my battered laptop, diving into free online coding courses since actual textbooks cost more than I could spare. I skipped the campus parties and social clubs, pouring every spare hour into mastering algorithms and building small programs that actually ran. The spark for the app came during one of those exhausted late nights. My roommates were constantly stressed about money, student loans stacking up like bricks, credit cards maxed from textbooks and late-night delivery orders, endless debates over who owed what on the electric bill. One night, one of them groaned, "I wish something could just watch my spending and stop me before I blow my budget again." Their words hit like a mirror to my own life, always scraping by while others got handed the cushion. That frustration felt familiar, personal, and solvable. Why not create an app that made managing money simple and supportive, not judgmental? I grabbed a notebook and started sketching clean dashboards, showing daily spending color-coded budgets that updated in real time, gentle nudges like, "You're nearing your eating out limit," instead of harsh warnings. I named it Finance Buddy because it felt straightforward, and the domain was free. After shifts, I rushed home, heated up instant noodles, and coded until my eyes burned. The first version was basic, but functional log transactions view weekly overviews get simple tips on cutting costs. I shared it with my roommates and demanded brutal honesty. They delivered buttons, clunky charts, hard to read, no alerts for recurring subscriptions. Every critique stung, but I fixed them methodically, one update at a time. Small changes led to real traction. A roommate showed her study group who shared it in their chats. When someone left a review saying it helped them dodge an overdraft fee. For the first time, I sat in the library bathroom and let the feeling sink in. That first trickle of ad revenue appeared in the dashboard, modest but undeniable. I stared at the number for a long minute. It wasn't wealth yet, but it was proof something I had built entirely on my own, without a single handout or nod of approval. I funneled that money back into a slightly better laptop to code faster. I kept pushing, jotting new features on napkins during breaks, studying documentation on the bus ride home. I wasn't chasing revenge or riches in those moments. I was chasing the quiet power of creating something that fixed a problem I knew too intimately, one line of code at a time. As Finance Buddy gained traction, I decided to stop treating it like a hobby and make it official. I filed the incorporation papers, set up a business bank account, and leased a small office on the outskirts of Austin, a single room with secondhand furniture, flickering fluorescent lights, and a parking lot view that reminded me how far I'd come. The schedule turned brutal: mornings answering user emails and squashing bugs, afternoons building features, evenings devouring marketing podcasts, and showing up at local tech meetups where founders shared war stories over craft beer. Downloads surged month over month, and I launched a premium tier offering advanced analytics for a few dollars monthly. When annual recurring revenue crossed $75,000, I brought on 2 junior developers straight out of school, sharp, eager, and just as hungry as I had been. We packed into that cramped space, surviving on takeout and late-night commits, transforming the app into a real product with seamless integrations and growing user loyalty. At the same time, my sister Jennifer dove headfirst into her own startup, a hyper-local food delivery platform she insisted would dominate Austin's scene. Mom poured $150,000 into it, pulling from savings and refinancing the house to make it happen. 6 months later, the app collapsed: flawed execution, fierce competition, no viable path to profitability. Jennifer moved back home, deflated. Mom called me, sobbing, voice cracking, as she described how the world had been so cruel to her. Poor girl. How Jennifer only needed one more shot to bounce back. When she asked about my app thing, I kept my answers clipped. "It's going okay," I said. "We're seeing growth." I never mentioned the revenue climbing, the partnerships forming with local businesses, or the 2 developers now on payroll. It felt futile to explain when her focus stayed locked on Jennifer's setback. One night, Jennifer called from the living room couch at home, voice thick with sarcasm. "Still playing around with that silly little app hobby?" she asked, chuckling like it was a joke. The condescension sliced through the line, but I didn't bite back. Inside, the anger built steadily, a quiet fire. "I'll show them all," I thought, and ended the call without another word. I kept the success locked away, letting them believe I was still the overlooked one grinding away. The contrast only sharpened my drive. While they dealt with Jennifer's failure, my app kept expanding landing deals with small chains and integrating with major payment systems. During those same months, I started talking more frequently with my cousin Courtney on the phone. She was navigating her own post-college uncertainty, feeling the familiar weight of being sidelined in her family. She opened up about how her parents dismissed her career ideas while championing her brother's path. I gave her direct advice: polish her LinkedIn, target entry-level tech roles, reach out to alumni networks, and reminded her that her worth wasn't defined by their attention. Each call felt like a reflection of my own struggles, and guiding her made my own direction even clearer. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was creating something unbreakable, step by deliberate step, in a world that had never made room for me. Months later, my therapist suggested going home for New Year's as an experiment, not to fix anything, but to see in real time how different I'd become. I booked a flight to Austin, checked into a hotel near Round Rock to keep some distance, and arrived on a crisp afternoon. The neighborhood looked smaller than I remembered, the cracked sidewalks and plastic reindeer on lawns unchanged. I walked from the car to Mom's house, the familiar smell of nutmeg and roasting brisket hitting me as soon as the door opened. Mom hugged me quickly, eyes already shifting to Jennifer, who lounged on the couch in sweats. Dad sat in his recliner, remote in hand, offering a quiet nod. We moved to the table for dinner, plates heavy with brisket, collards, and cornbread, the string lights outside casting a soft glow through the window. Mom directed every ounce of attention toward Jennifer's newest pitch, a subscription box service she claimed would explode in Austin's market. Jennifer leaned into it, gesturing animatedly, while I sat in my old spot eating in silence. Then Jennifer turned to me with that old smirk. "So how's the little app project going? Still messing around with it?" I set my fork down deliberately. "Actually, I sold it." The room froze. Jennifer let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Sold it? Come on. To who? How much?" She leaned forward, air quotes already forming. I held her gaze. "A major finance group. $250 million. Her jaw dropped open. Mom's champagne flute shook in her hand, color vanishing from her face so fast the glass nearly slipped. Dad's fork hovered midair. The silence stretched heavy and electric. Jennifer snapped back first. "No way! You got lucky. That's it. Nobody drops that kind of money on some basic finance tracker." I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward them. The banking app displayed the balance, a number stretching across the display, like it didn't belong there. "After taxes and team bonuses, this is the net." Mom leaned in, eyes wide, lips moving as she counted the zeros. Jennifer snatched the phone, fingers trembling, scrolling desperately for a catch. Finding none, she shoved it back. "So what? You think this makes you superior now? Money doesn't change who you are." I stood slowly. Luck didn't code a single line. Luck didn't reject smaller offers because they compromised the vision. Luck didn't answer support tickets at dawn or build from nothing while you got everything handed to you: the private school, the trips, the $150,000 for your failed delivery app. You told me I'd be fine and treated that like permission to disappear. You built your entire world around the wrong child, and now the one you ignored has outgrown the box you put her in. Dad rose halfway from his chair, voice unsteady. "Erica, come on, let's not..." He faltered, glancing between us, the fracture in the family laid bare in his hesitation. The tension hummed, years of unspoken resentment detonating in the quiet dining room. I looked straight at Mom. "You gambled on the wrong child." The fallout started the next morning. My phone lit up with a barrage of texts from Mom, long, emotional paragraphs about family bonds and misunderstandings laced with accusations that I had intentionally shamed Jennifer in front of everyone. A few hours later, Jennifer added her own messages, branding me selfish and ungrateful, claiming I had abandoned the people who raised me. I read them in silence and didn't reply. 2 days later, a certified letter arrived from their lawyer demanding $4 million as compensation for decades of support housing, food, and education. The demand felt absurd, like putting a price tag on a childhood they barely invested in. I forwarded it to my attorney, who responded with precision. His letter attached exhaustive financial records, every tuition payment for Jennifer's private school, every check Mom wrote for her failed startup, every significant expense linked to her name, and a stark zero beside mine. The response declined the claim and warned that litigation would make those records public. They retreated fast. A brief, panicked message followed: "We're dropping it, let's forget lawyers." No remorse, just withdrawal. But the real unraveling was just starting. Jennifer, already fragile after her startup imploded, broke further. She had taken a retail job at a big box store like Best Buy, stocking shelves and handling customers. One shift, she lost control with a shopper over a return policy, yelling, cursing, creating a scene that a customer captured on video. The clip spread rapidly, landing in a local Austin Facebook group, where users quickly linked the ranting employee in the blue polo to Jennifer's earlier online posts attacking her rich, ungrateful sister after the New Year's dinner. The post exploded overnight, gaining hundreds of shares and comments. HR summoned her the next day for an investigation. In Texas's at-will employment system, they didn't need elaborate justification. She was terminated within hours, the exit paperwork citing misconduct and potential reputational damage. She tried to defend herself online with furious posts that only amplified the backlash, turning her name into local gossip fuel she couldn't outrun. But that was just the beginning of their collapse. Within a year, the consequences deepened into something irreversible. Jennifer spiraled further into debt, taking out small business loans she didn't fully understand to fund yet another idea that never materialized. Mom poured the last of her savings into bailing her out, then refinanced the house again to cover the mounting bills. Payments slipped, late fees accumulated, and eventually, the lender issued foreclosure notices. The house I grew up in, the one with the faded blue paint and overwatered lawn, was sold at auction to settle the debt. Mom moved into a small apartment on the other side of Round Rock, a place she could barely afford. Her health started declining under the constant stress, high blood pressure, sleepless nights, doctor visits that piled up medical bills. Relatives who once celebrated Jennifer's every step pulled away quietly, tired of the drama and unwilling to get involved. The family circle shrank until it felt like it had never existed. Dad called me one evening, voice cracking in a way I had never heard before. He admitted Mom had favored Jennifer too much, that he had stayed silent too long, that he regretted letting it happen. He asked if there was any way to make things right, if we could talk. Maybe meet for coffee. I listened without interrupting, then told him no. I had spent too many years waiting for someone to see me. Now I chose not to wait anymore. I blocked the numbers and ended the conversation. No more investments in their mess. No more safety nets for people who never offered me one. I turned my energy toward my cousin Courtney instead. We talked regularly on the phone, and I mentored her, fully reviewing her resumes, helping her prep for interviews, connecting her with people in tech who could open doors. She landed an entry-level role at a startup in Austin, and watching her gain confidence felt more meaningful than any amount of money. Stories like this make you realize how common these family dynamics are. It's wild what people go through without saying a word. What I learned through all of it is simple and brutal. Your worth is not determined by how much your family claps for you, how much they invest in you, or whether they ever admit they were wrong. Favoritism doesn't just damage the child who gets ignored, It cripples the one who gets worshipped too, leaving them unprepared for real failure. In Texas, we say, "Pull yourself up by your bootstraps." I did exactly that without a single hand to help me stand. And so can you. If you've ever felt like the afterthought in your own family, know this. The life you build on your own terms is the only one that truly belongs to you. The silence I once feared became my strength. I no longer needed their approval to breathe. I had outgrown the role they assigned me, and in doing so, I found freedom they could never take away. Thank you all for taking the time to watch the video. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos.